AI and Executive Strategy with David Lykken.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. I'm really excited about my guest today on the show, David Lykken, and he is a business executive. And so for all your developers, we're not going to talk about code today, but we're going to talk about AI from a business perspective and a strategic perspective. David Lykken is a 51-year veteran of the mortgage industry. He's the founder and president and chief transformational officer of the company, Transformational Mortgage Solutions, TMS, and he has decades of expertise. David and his team of industry veterans are revolutionizing the way mortgage professionals conduct business through consulting, executive coaching, and strategic communication. He's recognized as a leading voice in the mortgage sector, and he's been a frequent guest on Fox Business News, as well as making appearances on CNBC and CBS Evening News, and he shares invaluable insights on market trends and industry developments. He's also the host of the widely acclaimed weekly Lykken On Lending podcast, and that's heard every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on LykkenOnLending.com. And he also leads the Lykken On Leadership podcast, and there he provides leadership strategies tailored to the mortgage and housing industries. But beyond his work in podcasting, David extends his reach into television, hosting the TV shows Your Home Business and also Your Home Coast to Coast, and both air on Your Home TV. And his multifaceted career reflects a deep commitment to educating and empowering professionals in an ever-evolving industry. And I'm so excited to have him on the podcast today. He's been a good friend, and I've enjoyed being on some of his speaking engagements. But David Lykken, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Good to be here with you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. What an honor.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We usually focus on deep technical topics and programming bits and bytes. And we've talked about artificial intelligence in that area, but it's such a huge thing that's moving the industry. I thought it'd be beneficial for all the software engineers and architects who listen to this show to kind of hear it from a business strategy perspective. And I want to ask you about that. But before we do, I always like to ask the guests to kind of go back in time and reflect. Are there any transformational moments in your career that teed up to even get you interested in artificial intelligence, coming from one sector of the larger financial industry?
There's many stories I could tell, but one stands out that's pretty notable. It was well before we had levels of technology. I was a new loan originator, working as a branch manager at a bank up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, in Bellevue, not too far from Microsoft's headquarters, where they're at now, right there in Bell Red Road. And I'll never forget I am really good at the relationship side. But when I grew up, Jeffrey, I did not realize I'm 74 years old, born 1950. We didn't have a grid for dyslexia. So I did not know that. I knew that I thought I was bright, but I was a C student, and it was because I struggled with reading. It was because of the dyslexia, dysgraphia, and all those kind of issues. So when I came, if you only think about mortgage lending process, there's a lot of details, a lot of forms to fill out. Well, and then you have to fill out disclosures and all these kind of things, a lot for compliance. I could not get a column of numbers to add up the same. If it's the same column of numbers, I couldn't get them to add up the same answer 3 or 4 times because the numbers would move around with dyslexia. So if you're doing this before we had spreadsheets and calculators and programs back in 1973, 74, 75, that time frame, we did not have the technology we have. We didn't even have 4-function calculators when we started. Right. So I'll never forget the moment where the president of the bank, the compliance officer, came to the president of the bank and said, "Hey, we got a real problem. I don't care if he's a top producer for our company, but we have a real problem with this guy because he's not compliant. Look at this math. Look at the problems." And, I was more interested in the relationship and helping someone get into a house than I was those kind of details. And I tried, but it was really hard for me. But anyway, so compliance, this is a problem. Anytime compliance prevails over a sales leader, so he prevailed over the president and he's coming out to fire me. To let me go because I can't add up a column of numbers. And so he was really conflicted because I was their top salesman. I was a top producer. And he was really conflicted, and he came out to the office. He stopped on the way out to office to fire me. He stopped at a friend's office, explained his dilemma. I'm about ready to fire our top producer, salesperson. It seems like the hardest thing to do. I seem like an idiot. The guy says, yeah, you are. Why? He says, why? He says, okay, you're calling me an idiot. Why do you think I'm an idiot? He says, because you can't figure this out. He says, well, what would you do? He says, I would hire him 3 really good assistants that are good at detail and adding up numbers, and send him out in the field with a car and tell him he could never touch another piece of paper.
Nice.
That was the first time I understood what virtual assistant was. I did not know it. So they hired me 3 people, and I went out and did the thing I loved the best. I talk about God design. I think we all have a design, and my design is relationships, Jeffrey. It's not filling out forms.
Yeah.
And so we would try to put a square peg in a round hole. We all know how that works. Something's going to get broken. And they almost lost me as a top performer. Someone else would have figured it out, but I hadn't figured it out yet. So that near tragedy turned the bank around, turned me around, and it really created, I'm always looking for solutions to offset some of the issues with dyslexia or whatever else I have. I'm really strong at relationship building, but that's where I really learned the power, which opened up the eyes, which really opened up. So when technology developed, AI, and looking at the power that it has, wow, I was ready for it because of that experience. It happened many, many decades earlier. Yeah.
A progression of technology. So I want to kind of get into the future and what you're preparing for and what you see the industry and overall markets preparing for with the current generation of artificial intelligence. But if we were to put some blinders on and say, okay, right now, and with past guests, we've talked about all the technical and software aspects and those kinds of tools. But right now, what AI tools do you find yourself using literally today? Not things that are being worked on in the future, but literally today.
Yeah, that's really, really good. We're starting to look really a lot at large language models, Chat GPT. We look at those. What troubles me about Chat GPT is the fact that you're helping make Sam Altman and a whole lot of other type of people that are in that very rich, because they're getting your data, they're getting your knowledge, your intellectual property is going into their system. So what I've been working on is finding a blockchain secure place where I can put my intellectual property. I've been consulting. I've been in the industry, as you said, for 51 years, got a lot of knowledge experience. I've been consulting in the industry for the last 25 years. I've developed proprietary processes. And so I want to lock those down in a secure system, not one that Sam Altman with ChatGPT could use. So I've been really looking at blockchain, my own private GPT, if you will, and I've been dumping that into it. So my podcast has been running for 17 years. We are downloading 17 years of data into my own proprietary, lack of a better term, Chat GPT, large language model.
Yeah.
And we're bringing that all together, and we are now having it query, when questions come in, we query that. So again, some aspects of the consulting gets old, and I think one of the things I've always believed in, Jeffrey, we should keep doing what we're doing, but add new. But when you get really tired of doing some block and tackle, the same type of repetitive type consulting on specific task-oriented, gets old. So I'm going to move off of that and move into something else. And a guy said, Dave, don't move off of that. Put that expertise into a blockchain. We'll have your avatar start teaching that. And I go, you're kidding me. So I went out and started using a product called, we're using Angel AI, which is a new AI tool, but Twin Protocol is the one that I'm using right now. So if you write down Twin Protocol, you go check it out.
Yeah.
He showed me, I just had him, Bill Inman is the CEO, founder of Twin Protocol. I had him on my podcast and we were preparing for it. He says, Dave, let's go over to your LinkedIn profile. He brought in my LinkedIn profile, just my LinkedIn profile into that, downloaded the data that's in my LinkedIn profile, and had my image that I was used as my profile image, had it talking to me and sharing all the knowledge in my LinkedIn profile within 10 minutes. I was blown away. And then I realized the power of this tool. So what we're now doing, what I'm doing right now to answer your question, is I had to get you through that journey, get you where I'm at. How I'm using it is I'm taking all the intellectual knowledge, all my IP, and I'm putting it into a secure vault for myself. And I'm having AI look at that knowledge and give it back. So you can hire me at a $550 an hour to be a business consultant to you one-on-one, or you could hire my avatar to give you basically the same knowledge. In fact, I'll argue, I think it delivers the knowledge more succinctly and even better and that's what we're about ready to release. That's what I'm working on right now. So it takes all the task-oriented, repetitive things that I'm tired of consulting on and allows me to continue to do so. And someone can call into it, query it, retain it, and it can then scale to unlimited number of people that I can work with at any particular time. And then I'll still work one-on-one in the areas of my passion, which is executive development, leadership development, which I really enjoy. Now I'll develop that knowledge base and that'll go in there, and eventually you just keep learning. So keep pushing into your own private chat GPT, if you will, and make it dispense the information and knowledge that you've gained.
Very nice. So anyone with any kind of body of work, whether it be magazine articles or interviews, or that sounds like it'd be appropriate for that type of product. Now, when you say pushing it into your own private GPT, is that specifically with the Twin Protocol service?
Well, I can do Twin Protocol. I can put it in. No, they're developing a blockchain. I'm working with a company called Celigence out of Puerto Rico. That's one of my clients. And he has developed interesting how I met him when he was 11 years old. He was a prodigy at 11 years old. I used to sell loans to his dad and his mortgage company. When I originated the loans, I sold it to him. And I met this kid, Pavan, when he was 11 years old. I didn't reconnect with him until 44 years later when he had developed this new technology and we connected the dots. It was one of those moments where you go like, there's some divine connection going on here. So he has developed this true artificial intelligence for automating the loan process. I'm helping him take that to market and helping him as an influencer because we have such a large listening audience. I'm the #1 podcast in the mortgage space. So we're helping him take that product to market and help him craft his message a little bit better because communications is the thing I really enjoy. So what is happening is we're starting to use multiple tools. We use 11 Labs for language. We use Twin Protocol when it comes to creating an avatar. And then he is also creating a blockchain vault where I put all my knowledge, where I own it. It's my control, and it's not out there for the Sam Altmans to use.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm guessing sometime soon you're going to have a new URL to announce with all this coming together?
Yeah, it'll be very soon, very, very shortly, very shortly.
Just you personally and your partners and your coworkers, what other AI tools do you find have just kind of infiltrated your normal workflow?
Well, you can't exist today. You and I both know Pete Hayes. He's one of our...
Yep, from Chief Outsiders, the marketing consultancy.
Yeah, we watch how he uses Chat GPT, and it's so effective in communications. Virtually everyone that I'm working with is using these new tools, LLMs, to be able to find our way to communicate more effectively, to express what we are struggling with in expressing. So Pete has shown us over and over again, and you as well are doing that, Jeffrey, about how we can communicate more effectively if we put the ideas in there. And the more it learns about us, the more it can do a better job of representing what we're trying to say. The problem, again, is ChatGPT is the one that's learning that in many cases. So I think I would encourage anyone who's looking at this, find a way to lock this down where you own your IP and that it is coming out of that system that you own and train.
Do you find yourself like running any LLMs locally in Olama or LM Studio, or is it all just services and products?
It's all services and products at this time. I'm using others. We're looking at all the options. That'll be something I'm looking forward to talking to you about. Once we have this initial proof of concept done, we'll be doing that. Another one we're working with, which is really interesting, and it's called ELO GPT. So if you go to elogpt.com, you can look it up. What that has been is it was originally designed to AI listens to inbound calls in a call center, is what he originally designed it for. Then he got to the point where he could listen to the effectiveness of the agent that's talking, whether it's a customer service agent, salesperson, listens to the quality of the way they're talking, and they programmed it to give it a rating and help educate and lift someone who's ever on the phone, consumer facing or customer facing, to list the quality of that call. So that was the original design of it. As he started working with it, he figured out how to make outbound calls. So one of the things that we have as an issue in our industry is recruiting of mortgage loan originators. The good ones get called constantly and they're annoyed by it. And how do you work out there? So there's databases out there. It's one called retr.com. It has a database of all the loan originators in the United States with how many loans they close, who they close the loans for, the product type. I mean, It's a rich database. So I come work with a client, one of my mortgage lenders, and they say, we want to open up in the Phoenix market. We need to know who's in there. So I ask them, give me a profile of who you're looking for. I go into Redder and I go pull out the top performers that match their data. And I challenged the owner, just gave him some free information. I said, it'd be nice if you could tell me the personality type of these individuals. And I explained how I've done that. And so he's now added to the data, the performance data of every one of these MLOs, a very good probability of what that person's personality is, and explains how to talk to you, how to talk to that individual if you reach out to him. So that's a powerful database. And then ELO, what we're doing is we're using 11 labs. We mimic the voice or copy the voice of the person who's going to be making the outbound calls. We bring in the data from Redder. We put it into the LMM. It creates an outbound call and a ringless call to the voicemail. And it gives real specific data. So, for example, if I was recruiting you, Jeffrey, and say, hey, Jeffrey, this is Dave Lykken. I'm really impressed with what you're doing. I'm looking at what you've done, and you get specific. I see you close this many loans with this realtor, this builder, and this type of loan products. That fits well. I'd love to get to know you better. If there's ever an opportunity to have you ever looking to make a change? I would love to have that opportunity, but I would just like to get to know you. You make that as an outbound call. You drop it in their inbox. It is personalized. A lot of people say, aren't you violating the laws when it comes to that? Well, it's on the edge. If it's B2B, it's okay. If it's B2C, it's a different matter. But B2B, you're able to communicate to another business person in that manner and get them to call. Then we give a number they call back into. They're talking to AI. We have a recorded message. Hi, so if you were calling me back, I said, hi, is this Jeffrey calling me? Yep, this is Jeff. Well, Jeffrey, I'm busy right now, but if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have my AI talk to you a little bit. Just try it. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine, but you may want to give it a try. He said, well, great. I'm calling you back about that job offer. What do you think about it? And they start interacting with the AI, giving answers to the questions that are commonly asked. And it's pulling out of the knowledge database. So all of a sudden, we're doing a automated recruiting and response, and we filter the final product when they meet certain requirements up to the hiring manager.
And when are you planning to initiate that?
We're in Josh, I'm working with Josh, is helping me on the contractually do that, put it all together, our attorney friend, and that will be launched this month.
It's an open question of, you don't know until you try, how many people are happy interacting with a computer, regardless of how fluently it talks and all that stuff, versus not. And I guess we'll harvest some data, and that remains to be seen.
Well, everyone says, how do you have difficulty? I said, well, do you have Siri? Do you have an AI assistant on your phone already? Are you asking it questions every day?
Yeah.
Yes. The answer is we're all using it every day. I think the barrier of resistance is dropping dramatically with every time. And it's how we use it, Jeffrey. When we personalize it, such as I was using as an example, I'm talking to you by name. I'm talking to you about very specifics about your business, about what you're doing. First of all, you're going to go, well, you're either going to go like, this is scary. What's Big Brother watching over me? But everyone knows in our industry that these databases exist.
Right.
So they're not resistant. They're actually going, kudos, you did your homework. I want to talk to you because I'm tired of the guy that's calling, hey, come work for me. I'm a really great guy.
Yeah.
That doesn't have appeal. Those are getting turned down. We've got to up the game, and that's what we're helping lenders do when it comes to recruiting.
Nice. I want to talk about AI usage and just mistakes that you see and what you'd suggest how to avoid those things. Because we've seen some of the news and certain lawyers submitting briefs to judges, and it turns out it was generated by Chat GPT or something else, and it has literally factual errors about court cases cited, and they get in trouble and whatnot. What do you see like newbie mistakes that people are using, and how people should think about avoiding those?
Well, first of all, they haven't taken the time to train whatever AI tool they use. Even if you're using ChatGPT or one of the other many large language models out there, it's really important to take the time to educate it on who you are and what is acceptable. But even that is not going to solve the problem. I use Perplexity. I use all the different ones that are out there, and they're coming up with some of the strangest answers to questions. So this is why, if you're dealing in a business where it is very technical, it is so important that you load this up into a proprietary GPT system, LLM, for yourself, where you know and control the content going in there. There's a higher probability of it giving an accurate answer that you have already approved or that you've already sourced and worked through and have put in there. If it's going outside into the internet, you do not know where it's pulling from. And if it's just, and sometimes it's just flat out wrong and erroneous and will reflect poorly on you.
Yeah. Gmail, I noticed, is adding the auto draft or reply and summarizing, and Apple just in one of the updates has summarization of text message threads and all that. And I personally turned it off because it was so wrong. And now maybe they'll fix it or whatnot, but
I'm sure they will.
But with emails, the inboxes are, I mean, you can have so much cluttered inbox, and then people don't read the email. And now Gmail is offering to draft emails for you. What's your opinion on that? Do you find yourself receiving emails that you can tell are just generated from a computer?
It's so obvious, and you get to the point, or again, it hurts the credibility of the sender. Someone wanting to do business with me, wanting to inquire about that. They're hurting themselves. There's always the cutting edge and the bleeding edge. I love being on the cutting edge of technology, but that's the bleeding edge. That you're going to bleed when you rely on those tools. I have had to shut off the same tools for summarizing things. They're going to get there. It's going to get there fast. And that's why I recommend the book, The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. You'll put that, I think you said you're going to put a link to that. Many people have read that book. It's a bestseller. It's been out for a couple of years, but man, if there's any book, every business person or anyone in computer industry in any way, shape, or form, using computers, everybody should be reading this book, because it's broken into three primary sections. The first one talks about previous major shifts where we've gone from tectonic shifts from, agriculture, agrarian culture to a manufacturing culture. Now we're in a computer information age, and now we're entering the AI age. It talks about all the various times, all the various phases and the resistance that it met, but it broke through in every case, which goes to your point. They're going to break through, and it'll be to the point, I believe, we will not be reading our emails. AI will be reading our emails and bringing us that which is most relevant, giving us a legitimate, meaningful summary. And like I have right now, I have 2 full-time VAs in the Philippines. They are instructed to read all my emails. When an email comes in requesting an appointment, they know enough about me to know this is some appointment Dave would like or would not like. And so we're using humans with their knowledge about what I like, but that's going to get replaced at some point in time, Jeffrey, because someone will be able to learn what I like, with the important meetings I do want, the calls I do want that should get through. When the case they pin the emails, they say, Dave, you need to respond to this. We have a new sales lead, for example. Someone wants to do business with you or wants you to retain you. That's one I want to get. So they know which one's the pin. And I'm only reading the pinned emails that have already been read and oftentimes responded to. And that's what we see. That's where it's going, and it's going quickly.
Now, every business machine, it seems like you mentioned the various waves. My grade school, I learned to type on a electronic typewriter, not a mechanical one. It was already electric, but now it's keyboards. And so I do remember a time when pretty much every business manager and executive had a secretary or multiple secretaries, and typing was part of that. And then when when every manager had a word processor or computer on the desk in the 80s, and then of course in the 90s, so many people saw the job of a secretary as a typist because that was a very common activity. And so secretaries largely went away. And there's so many business managers and executives that operate without any kind of secretary. And now we bring in assistant and executive assistant and all that. And so the activity was associated with the role, but now those executives have to operate a machine. And I see it coming back. Executive assistants seem to be coming back where we realize, wait a minute, no. Just because it's a computer instead of a typewriter doesn't mean that I don't benefit from an assistant. Just like you said you have 3. So with these AI tools, are you seeing it really going to be operated by an individual, or will your existing secretaries just operate those AI tools?
If you look at it, the secretary should have evolved. Didn't evolve. They should have evolved, because we still need assistants, whether it was a secretary that sat there and typed or someone that is scheduling for you. And now we have so many tools that can do a lot of the scheduling, but it doesn't do it in a way that knows what is the priority. That's why we have that. And that's called a relationship. We're seeing more and more advancements, how this is enabling and enhancing the relationship skills. But Jeffrey, I'm really doubtful that it's going to be able to replace that. So I believe there will always be a place for someone with relationship skills. Now, Cherry is the one who sets all my appointments. She knows what I want, where I want it. And you could say, well, I think we could program that. Well, there are outliers. And every time you have an outlier, you have that where the human needs. I don't think we're going to be replacing the human element in our human relationships. Oh, Dave would love to talk to you. Let me get that set up. Let me put you into our AI that'll schedule it. So they'll be pushing different buttons to get things done. But the relationship part of it, that's what's going to stick around for a lot longer than think many might otherwise realize.
When I put on my architect hat, and really even just a business process designer hat, every piece of machinery, no matter how complicated, no matter how much it might look like magic, like some of these medical scanners, it's like, how does it do that? I mean, it's a machine of some sort. Every machine seems to have an operator. Even if the machine is largely automated, it still has to have an operator.
Yes.
Or maybe it's so automated that one operator can manage and maintain 10 machines or 50 machines, but it still seems like there's a difference between a business machine operator and then customers or users. And I think to your point, you don't see Cherry's job literally being sucked into the computer. You see her as operating better tools.
Yeah, I think she's going to be I'll help bring her more and more tools and educate her. My job, I think that I was doing an interview on someone about leadership yesterday, and I said, what is the definition of leadership to this guy who's a very successful leader in the industry, iconic leader? And he said, someone that takes the time to help his or her people grow. In other words, they invest in people. That's leadership. So I think if you consider yourself a leader, are you investing in in my case, Cherries of the world, and raising their game as the game migrates and moves more and more to automation? Are you finding ways in which you to continue to move her skill set along with that, and yet still maintain the value that she brings? The human value, there's just something about it that while computers are getting more intuitive and they're doing greater things than some of us ever thought would happen, and it's only going to get more so as with AI. But you're never going to replace, in my opinion, the relationship component, the empathy, because when we're going through things in life, and Jeffrey, you've been so instrumental in working with me, it can give me facts. You can say, Dave, you're going through a divorce right now. It's really sad. I'm so sorry about that. Now, you do have this attorney. Have you crossed this T, crossed that, all that? But there's nothing that will replace Jeffrey Palermo going, Dave, I just hurt for you. How are you doing?
Yeah.
That conversation right there is something a computer can't do. Hal, we just watched Hal talk about that, that infamous movie so many years ago. It's that one. I'm sorry. I want to hear from a human. I want to know that human really feels what I'm going through. Yeah. And that's the part that I think is not going to be codified.
Yeah. Not just faking things, not just simulating things.
Mm-hmm.
And all the programmers listening, it's an open question because they hear futurists, saying, "Oh, in the future, so much code is going to be written by computers instead of by people." And they're like, "Does that mean that programmers, like young people, they've asked, well, I don't want to go into coding, but I think AI is going to replace all the programmers." But from your example with Cherry, it seems like, no, the programmers are just going to use better tools and they're going to be able to get faster.
Accurate.
But you still have to have somebody talk to someone who's the customer, says, "I want software that does such and such," and then operate machines and make it happen.
Yeah. A good example of that is when I talked about the recruiting way. I looked at these two or three tools, that technologies that are out there. And I was sitting there looking at it. It was the creative design where I able to start bolting these together. And I brought this out and they said, "Oh, we've tried that. We've tried that." It's the different twist. How many times when we're tuning a carburetor in a Ferrari, you may have it right, but it's that one twist, that famous saying, "What's it cost for you to tune up my Ferrari?" He says, "Oh, about $1,000. He says, "That's a lot of money." He says, "Yeah, but I know which screw to turn just a little bit to get it to function."
Right.
That's the thing. It's there's that intellectual property that we all bring, the emotional capital we bring. It's going to, quite frankly, keep all of us. So where are you, when you're coaching people or training people? What are we doing to teach them that skill set? That is the most important skill set, in addition to all the technical skills that you train, that we need to make sure we're putting in there, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well, as we come to the end here, you've got many more times than the level of experience as a lot of people listening to this show, and you've seen the different waves and the transitions and the difference between the futurists of that time and then what actually happened in that wave a few times over. So what are you preparing for? What do you sincerely expect to be the landscape changed by AI 10 years from now?
Well, I think for me, it's leverage. At this point, I've been a consultant that sells time for money, and it's been a one-on-one transaction. It's going to allow me to scale and all of a sudden do certain functions, not all functions, we've already covered that, where I'll be able to do it at a scale that's unimaginable just 2 years ago, a year ago even. It's unimaginable. So what I see is scaling up each of us and what our productivity is. I believe we're going to have some of the most productive, exciting years ahead. Yeah, there's scary elements that goes on. There's wars and rumors of wars. There's all the things that are worried about that are out there, Jeffrey. But the truth of the matter is, it really comes down to this. Think of what you're doing now and how you can move it to scale to increase your influence and effectiveness and impact on the world.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on the Azure and DevOps podcast. I appreciate sharing with us an executive's view of the current generation of artificial intelligence. Thanks so much.
It's good to be here. I never thought I'd be speaking to a group of coders before in my life, people that your audience, but it's a real honor to be here with you, Jeffrey. And I applaud you for having this podcast and going out to people. It's again, the thing that will not be replaced.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And until next time, dear listener, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.